Welcome into Caldwell County Today. I'm Eric Stafford, and here today with me for our monthly show with Amorem is Miss Kimberly Ksetzer, or Mrs. Kimberly Ksetzer, who is actually the director of
Grief Services.
Grief Services at Amorem. Now, you've seen Kimberly on before. She's talked about different things, about going through grief and the different stages and those things. But today we're talking about something special that happens once a year, and well, I think once a year.
Correct.
Pretty much once a year. And it is the
Good Mourning Children's Grief Camp.
Yeah, grief camp for children. And I was talking to somebody about this show coming up the other day, and they were like, I never even thought about children dealing with grief or being counseled by Amorem. And I was like, yeah, it's a thing. And I probably wouldn't know if it wasn't for my job. But I was really, I had to educate this person and say, yeah, it is a thing.
Absolutely.
And so tell us about the Good Mourning Children's Grief Camp. Tell us.
Sure. So our Good Mourning Children's Grief Camp is an annual event. This year it will be at our HUDSON campus on March the 29th. Okay. And so we will welcome children ages 6 to 12 for a day of fun, but also a day of exploring grief. So what we find in families, whenever a family has a loss, oftentimes children kind of get lost in the mix.
Yeah.
And children do grieve very differently. They grieve differently based on their developmental stages and their ages, their understanding of death, dying, grief, loss. And so what we do is do a lot of education that day about what is grief, what is normal for grief. We educate the children about grief, and then at the end of the day we meet with parents, grandparents, guardians, whoever are the caregivers for that child. And we provide some education to them about how to support those grieving children. What are normal behaviors, when to reach out for help for those children. And so we provide that education to the child, but also to their support system so that they know, is this a normal response? Is this something that we need to be concerned about? The other thing that we've learned about in working with children in grief is that as children grow and they move into new developmental stages, sometimes they have to go back and reprocess former losses. So we provide an opportunity for that as well.
Now, it's so overwhelming. Grief is so overwhelming to people, to everybody, but to think of a child going through it is really, I mean, like you said, how to process or going back and processing old griefs that you don't even realize. And so where do you start? How does the grief camp start?
So we always start in the morning. We come together, we do some icebreakers, because a lot of times these children are complete strangers to one another. And so we all come together, whether it be the children, the volunteers, our staff members. And if children are a little apprehensive about being there, we'll allow their parent or grandparent or guardian to stay for a little bit. And we always, we start that with a icebreaker. We kind of want to just make everybody a little bit more comfortable. And so we are very direct, and we say, we want you to share your name, we want you to share a fun fact about yourself, and then tell us about your special person that you've lost. So we're straight out of the gate, we're telling them that we're there to talk about grief.
Yeah.
What is so interesting about that is a lot of times for these children, they've never been around other children that are grieving. So they may be the only child in their class at school or in their whole grade level at their school that is dealing with a loss. And so oftentimes they come into camp feeling very, very isolated. And by the end of the day, their feelings and their responses and their emotions are very much normalized because they've been around other children and they can see, oh, Eric also feels that way.
Yeah.
So about 2 years ago, we had two children. They were 6-year-old little boys. And both of them were pretty quiet, pretty introverted. And they ended up, just happened to be that they sat right beside of each other. And as we were sharing, the first little boy shared that he was 6 and his mom had died. And the little boy next to him said, my mommy died too. And I've never met any other 6-year-old whose mommy had died.
Oh, wow.
And so they just immediately buddied up and were together through the rest of the day. So we always kind of start the day by introducing ourselves and sharing who our losses are. Some of these children have had multiple losses. The other thing that we do is we talk about non-death losses. So sometimes maybe these children have had a parent or a grandparent, a close aunt or uncle, or maybe even a sibling who's passed away, but then their family's also been through divorce. And so we acknowledge that those non-death losses also have a huge impact on us and that we experience grief from those as well.
Yeah, and that even complicates it even more to think about divorce and how that goes on, because a lot of people, if they lose a child or a spouse, I mean, well, they lose a spouse, but they might be disconnected from the rest of that big family that the child knew. It's really weird that you said that about the kids, because my daughter is 20 and she's adopted, and she had lost her mom, and her best friend had lost her mom, and they're both the same age, and they kind of, in middle school, they hooked up.
Yeah.
So it's amazing that happened, that they both had been through that. But so I thought that was really interesting. So we know where it is and what you're going to do. How do you qualify? How does a child qualify?
Great question. So this camp is open to anybody any child ages 6 to 12. They do not have to live in Caldwell County.
Okay,
they can come from surrounding counties. We also, because we do serve in the High Country, we'll be having a camp in the High Country on March the 15th. So if that date works better for you, but you're in Caldwell County, you can come to the other event, or vice versa. So folks can just call us at Amorem, or they can send me an email. The information will be on the screen, and we can help them determine if it's a good fit for their child or the children in their life. But there is no cap. So if your loss happened 3 years ago, and this child's experiencing some delayed grief, so it's not like they had, and they also don't have to be an Amorem patient that died. So if your loss was not connected with Amorem in any way, maybe it was a sudden loss, maybe it was an unexpected loss, that child can still come, because their grief is still real and still valid. And we serve folks in the community whether their loss was connected through hospice or not.
Wow, and that's amazing that you do that. And Amorem covers so much now. Mm-hmm. And when you became Amorem and took on Burke County and all the other counties, mm-hmm. It seems like there's a lot of kids that probably need this service, and it Absolutely. Would be good for them to come and enjoy it. But you do try to have fun, right?
We do. Absolutely. So we do talk a lot about grief, but we also try to have fun. One of the best ways that children identify their emotions, one of the best ways that children can express how they feel, is through play. And so there are certainly elements of play. We also use a lot of expressive arts therapy in this camp. And so we have activities throughout the day. We also have free time where kids can just be kids, and they can go outside if it's a pretty day and we'll play. We may go on a walk. So the other goal with camp, not just to learn about grief or to meet other children who are grieving, is we want these children to walk away with some really good coping skills that we know are evidence-based tools that they can use to take with them and help them cope with their grief.
And if a child needs more than just this camp, I know y'all have grief support systems all the time, year round. Right. What can they do if you have a child that may be grieving? Do you guys offer any kind of counseling?
We sure do. We offer individual grief support. So any child or adult that needs grief support, they would contact us directly. We would do an assessment, and then we would give you a recommendation. Do you need support? Do you need grief counseling? Do you have a counseling need that's beyond grief? And we would connect you with a community partner. So any child or adult can utilize our grief support services all throughout the year. We do individual supports. We have grief support groups. And then, of course, we have these special events as well. Yeah,
and it's always fun to talk to you, and always to see what's coming up for the kids, and see, because you want them to have a good time after Absolutely. What they've been through, and so it's always good to talk about the Good Mourning Children's Grief Camp. Now, if you are interested in finding out about the Good Mourning Grief Camp, it is on the screen. You can contact Amorem for more information. If you might need any Amorem services, the services are listed on the website as well. There's a number to call, and just call the number on the screen and talk Absolutely. To them anytime.
And you can actually do an online inquiry as well. So based on the different pages within the site, the different types of services, you can do a request for more information through the website, and then we would get back to you by email or phone, whatever your preference is.
Yeah, and there's something a lot of people forget about Amorem too, is that they're a big employer.
Absolutely.
So you guys are always looking for people to work.
Absolutely. We have a careers page, and any open positions are listed there.
Yeah, so if there's something that you, or if you want to volunteer, you got volunteers as well.
Always need volunteers.
Always volunteers, and specifically veterans volunteers. I've heard
Correct.
you talk about veterans volunteers before, and so there's a lot of things that Amorem offers. Do go to that website and check it out and see if you want to donate, if you want to help. I mean, there's a lot of things there that people can do, and but I'm glad you come to talk to us about the Good Morning Grief Camp. What are those dates again?
So our Hudson or Caldwell campus, it will be March the 29th, and then we'll also be in Boone on March the 15th. So either date.
All right. So you heard it here first. That's right. So Kimberly, thank you so much for coming by and talking to us. It's always fun to have you guys here and to see you and see how you're doing. Yeah. Everybody was like old friends backstage. We're like, hey, how's it going? How you doing? So, you know, it was always good to see you and always good to have you here on the channel. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
All right. And thank you for watching Caldwell County Today.